Ho-Chunk people. Please take a moment to celebrate and honor this ancestral Ho-Chunk land and the sacred lands of all Indigenous peoples. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Ms. Bowden? Here. Ms. Bergdahl? Here. Dr. Cooper-Stoll? Here. Dr. Garcia?
Excused.
Dr. Jimenez?
Here.
Ms. Leahy?
Here.
Ms. Moots?
Here.
Mr. Korberg?
Here.
Mr. Spivey?
Here.
A quorum of the Board of Education is present, so the regularly scheduled meeting of January 9th, 2023 is called to order. And we'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tonight's agenda has previously been distributed to the board with a motion by Mr. Korberg and a second by Dr. Cooper-Stoll. We will move to approve the agenda as submitted unless there's a motion to amend. Is there a motion to amend? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion has carried, and I do not believe we have any public speakers, correct, Ms. Fagerwold? All right. So then we will move on to the school showcase and telling our story, a day in the life of your school librarians. And I'll turn over to Dr. Engel.
So thankful to have our school librarians here to tell us about what happens every day in our schools.
So excited. Good evening. My name is Carrie, and I am the library and HBL teacher at Hamilton Soda 1.
Hi, and I'm Cindy Halter. I'm the librarian at Central High School.
And I'm Christy Moulton. I'm the librarian at Logan High.
So how many of you have ever read a story that includes a library or a librarian? Yeah, right. So stereotypically, a library is described as a quiet place. There's a cardigan-wearing, nose and book, shushing librarian behind the desk. Other than the cardigans, today we want to flip those myths by telling you about the pre-K through grade 12 library program and the librarians of the school district of La Crosse. Since we love stories, we're going to tell ours as a celebration of the great things that are able to happen through our school library program, guided by our licensed and certified teacher librarians. We were last in front of you in 2017, so we're going to highlight some of the biggest achievements and changes that have occurred in the last 6 years. While a day in the life of a school librarian is never the same, it's always different. We know that each day we will instruct our students, support and connect with colleagues, collaborate with administrators and community partners, work with technology in a variety of ways, and create and maintain safe spaces and diverse collections where our students can grow and learn. School librarians are foremost focusing on providing students with a variety of rich educational opportunities. Instructions include how to use the library, as well as online safety, digital citizenship, research skills, and how to use the technology the district provides. Enrichment activities include Battle of the Books, Geography Bee, Vocabulary Showdown, Green Screen, 3D printing, Hour of Code, and that's usually coordinated through our library program in conjunction with HPL, or High Performance Learning. So all of us K through 8 librarians act as the HPL teachers in the buildings. Our goal is to help our students become independent learners who can manage their time, study effectively, build creativity and critical thinking skills, work well with others on group projects, and become lifelong readers and learners who know libraries are available to support them for their entire lives. The library extends beyond its 4 walls. Not only are some of the digital library resources available 24 hours, 7 days a week, we are often in classrooms teaching students how to use these resources effectively, to access information, or to determine how to use an application appropriately. Each one of us works with teachers to develop research units at every level, including discussion of fake news and credibility with students, so they are being able to be astute consumers of information. Our libraries are truly the heart of our respective buildings, and we welcome anyone from the staff or student body into them. Our classrooms have a flexible space with flexible programming, which allows for teachable moments and authentic interactions. Throughout their education experience, we do our best to inform students that librarians and libraries, public, academic, and more are always going to be for them and for them to continue as lifelong learners.
I'm going to stand a little closer to the mic than Carrie did. I hope that's okay. We have many opportunities to collaborate with teachers. We love it when a teacher approaches us and says, I have an idea, can you help? We help them gather resources, brainstorm creative ideas, and introduce them to new books or technology that can inspire and encourage both students and our staff. We address standards, we differentiate for our learners, and we invite ourselves into their classrooms so we can help support them with resources, knowledge, and an extra set of hands to help as students work through new things. As school librarians, we have built meaningful relationships with lots of community organizations, and these relationships benefit more than just our individual schools or students. Our focus is how we can lift up the entire library program and the district. These partnerships are a major foundation for libraries at large. As school librarians, we are just one small part of a birth-to-death library service. And if we're all in it together, we can build a community of lifelong library users. We start with the Sneakers and Stars programs in elementary school, where students go to the La Crosse Public Library and they connect with our fantastic LPL colleagues for tours and for stories. And then we continue that collaboration in a variety of ways all the way up through high school. We attend professional development and we host, develop, and lead opportunities for the staff of the School District of La Crosse and beyond. In November, Cindy, Carey, Lisa, who's also here with us tonight, and myself presented to a really well-attended session at the Wisconsin Library Association conference about how the La Crosse school librarians partner within our community. Specifically, in that presentation, we talked about the La Crosse Public Library, UWL librarians, and the La Crosse Public Education Foundation. It was really eye-opening for us to see how different communities really struggle with collaboration, because we truly are stronger, and our students benefit exponentially from our work with our community partners. Just one example. In partnership with the La Crosse Public Library and the La Crosse Public Education Foundation, we have been able to bring 4 nationally recognized authors to visit students in our schools since 2017. Kids are excited about reading, meeting writers, and seeing both windows to other lives and mirrors of their own in the books and authors that they find in the library. And we continue to plan events like this with our community partners, including 2 author visits this spring. The most impactful change since we were here in 2017 is the expansion of the district's one-to-one technology program. At that point, it was just in the middle schools with iPads, and now it is all elementary school students having iPads and all high school students having laptops, for which the librarians are the first line of support for students, as well as the staff and their devices. We collaborate with the technology services staff. I'm just going to interject this. I don't know what we would do without them. To be honest, they're fabulous people. And we collaborate with them by calling the help desk when we can't solve a problem, and we work through issues with the technicians when they're in the building working with us. And we also try to raise issues to tech services based on what we see firsthand in the building with students in regards to needs and safety, accessibility, equity, and more. Through troubleshooting and support, though troubleshooting and support are a big part of our day, we're also teachers of technology and teachers using technology ourselves. We use technology in our libraries and in the schools to support the curriculum and assist teachers with applications like Canvas, which came out of the pandemic, as well as collaborate with them to integrate technology into their classrooms. And in most cases, if there is something new with technology, we are the ones who train on how to integrate it into classrooms or teach it to students and focus on usage tips and best practice and strive to understand it from both the student use side and the teacher use side. Technology is changing every single day, and we have to be at the ready to respond to things, answer questions, or find the right help so students and teachers can feel successful and confident in their use of technology.
Our school libraries can be seen as the gold standard for the district's strategic plan for equity. One major area that we as a team have focused on in the past 6 years is developing diverse, relevant collections, which we build to both support the curriculum and personal interests and inquiries. How do we get kids excited about reading? Well, we make sure that they can see themselves represented in the collection. So we search for authors and materials that represent as many of our kids as we can. We build relationships with our students and our staff and listen to what their lives are like so that when we encounter a book, we can say, I bet Zoe would like that one, this one. Or when we are going through they are going through something tough, to make a good recommendation so they don't feel alone, or so they can understand someone else's life by seeing it through a window of a story. We work to make sure our spaces are safe spaces to take risks or to learn about the tough stuff, so that students know that libraries will support them their entire lives and can always be a safe space for them to find support. Every day, the librarians of La Crosse schools share books and authors with over 6,000 students through read-alouds, displays, book talks, and one-on-one readers advisory. We are excited that we can help grow readers through our full-time library services in our schools. In 2021, the librarians, all 14 of us, organized a district-wide initiative called Growing Readers, out of the desire to get back to books after virtual learning consumes so much of our tech-related energy, and it was a lot. An equitable approach where students of all ages would access to and be encouraged to find and choose the materials they were most interested in reading, to develop and grow a culture of readers and to facilitate a love of reading. This is already a major library philosophy, but we wanted to bring it to the forefront because study after study shows that if we want to improve reading abilities, we have to give our students choice in their book selections. With the diverse collections we've curated and maintained, we can reach out to our readers and help them grow as readers, as students, as humans. This initiative supports the district equity goals and directly supports the school improvement plans to improve literacy, which many of our buildings in the district have as a goal over the next 5 years. One strategy to improve literacy at Central is to have choice reading time for at least 30 minutes each week in English classes. This began last year and has had a positive impact on student evaluation toward reading. They recently were given a survey and students just responded to the question, how has choice reading been, like what kind of impact has it had on you? So as one student stated, quote, I used to read a lot in middle school and then I stopped in high school, but then my English class gave us free choice and I started to read a lot more. And another student said, choice reading has expanded my horizon for different genres and has offered me virtually unlimited access to charming poetry. I have read significantly more books these past few years, and it helps that I have almost constant access to literature and an abundance of class time to read. Having equitable access to books is also important to students. As expressed by a student, it's cool how the library provides books without people having to make a big decision to buy them. Sometimes the library even has books that I never knew existed, giving me that exposure. Being literate is the cornerstone of a strong democracy. Having a vibrant, professionally staffed library where all are safe and welcome, full of books and other resources where everyone can grow and learn is vital to assuring our students can dream, believe, and achieve at a higher rate. Thank you so much for this opportunity to tell our story and really celebrate the great things happening in the La Crosse Schools Library program. We appreciate your continued support. What better way to tell our story than through images? So here's a short video highlighting the library program in action.
We are 14 professional librarians that create welcoming, informative, and enjoyable libraries that serve students and staff across all buildings and educational levels. All of us interact, teach, and form meaningful relationships with students in our building. Beginning in preschool, we welcome them into our school libraries and explain how a library works, promote a love for reading and research, and help them become responsible users of technology. We collaborate and co-teach with teachers and find ways to create meaningful learning experiences across all curriculums. Our efforts focus on information literacy, assessing, evaluating, and understanding information and media in all formats, as well as digital citizenship, focusing on digital literacy and ethical use of technology. In addition, our libraries are a classroom where students are creators. Library teachers are always looking ahead to the next helpful resource, and with the one-to-one program, we are fully immersed in the digital opportunities that our students have. We teach our students that they can count on a library to be continuing support throughout their education at this school district of La Crosse. And as a member of the workforce, as a college student, a parent, a community member, a retiree, and more. Our libraries are only one chapter of libraries they will have access to in their lives, and our greatest responsibility is reminding them that a library is a pillar of our district and a community which can support them as long as they remember it is there. Our librarians promote the guiding principles of the American Library Association within all of our district libraries. These principles include creating a diverse collection of materials to meet the needs of all of our patrons, promoting the importance of education, reading, and lifelong learning, providing equitable access to information and library services, and respecting the intellectual freedom of our readers. In addition, our librarians teach all of our students their rights and responsibilities as digital citizens. Our school libraries support all students by providing voluntary reading materials that students can select from that cover a wide array of interests, reading levels, maturity levels, and ages. It is important that students can find books that represent their own lives and challenges on the shelf, so that they feel seen and represented as part of the school. Teacher librarians select quality reading materials through a lengthy process based on reviews, in professional journals, and from state and national reading lists. They are highly trained, and since they work with students and teachers daily, are well attuned to the interests and abilities of students in their schools. Libraries and the books within them are important to students because they welcome all students. Students who may feel disenfranchised can find a home in the library and in the books that they find on the shelves, and it is important to support their right to access those materials. Also, the Supreme Court recognized that libraries are places for voluntary inquiry and should contain even ideas that might be controversial to some. School librarians create partnerships between our district and across our community. Most importantly, teacher librarians connect students and staff with books and technology across the district, while also providing vibrant, necessary, and exciting places that are the heart of our schools.
Thank you.
It's the work of the librarians to kind of curate a space where students can kind of find themselves in that sense of belonging. So thank you for all you do.
There's.
I'm going to say ditto and just say thank you all for your work that you do for our school district and for our students and families.
Thank you. We don't do it alone.
Of course.
We have wonderful people that have our back right now, that are other librarians in the schools and the community. We couldn't all be here. But like I said before, the technicians are a big part of the success and what we're able to do every day too, and the teachers and students that we work with and our administrators. So yeah, it's a team effort, but thank you very much.
Others?
Thank you for holding strong on new ideas, and that the library should not just be some person's ideas, it should be open. So thank you for doing that.
So I do have a question for whoever wants to answer. When I oversaw the library at Western, there was a gathering of directors from Mayo, Gunderson, La Crosse Public, and Western to have a conversation about the challenges and the good things that are going on in the library world and how we could support each other. So I'm assuming you have lots of conversations with colleagues either in the region or across the state. What are some of the successes that you feel we have been able to accomplish here at Western? What are the challenges that are still yet to be handled?
Well, I guess as I said before, we presented at the Wisconsin Library Association. There aren't a lot of school librarians that present there, but we specifically went to talk about how we found success collaborating with our community partners. So I think that does make our schools stronger and the community at large. The group kind of makes fun of me probably for saying this all the time, but really birth to death service is a library philosophy. It is. From the moment you're born till the moment you die, you have a library. You should have a library that you can freely access. And without those partnerships, that can't be fostered. So we are so much stronger when we work with our community partners and really just the fabulous people at LPEF, the people we work with make us stronger. So that's my opinion, and I know Cindy's work with Paul.
Yeah, so pre-COVID, UWL librarians, Linda Jerome, who's with me, us here now with La Crosse Public Library, and me, we were this little group that put together a conference called the Conference for Libraries and Learning, and but the whole idea, the whole mission of that for 3 years, I think we did, Linda? Yeah, was to go across the aisle. So like we would have conferences where academic, public, and school librarians would come together, and we would see what challenges we have that are the same, and what things that we could learn from one another to try to implement in each of our areas. And really, I think that has kind of made me, and I think those of us who have been part of it, and everyone has attended, I think, at some point, see how similar there are and how it is important to talk across the aisle into places where, we are really fortunate here that we have, like I have 13 other colleagues to talk to, but really just reaching out and what the library world at large has been that was really positive. COVID kind of shut it down. No.
We'll get back there. We're getting back there. I have a challenge that I could bring up, but do you have any collaboration you want to speak of or strength
I
things that
personally am
strengthen us?
on the Wisconsin Education Media Technology Association board, so I'm on the board for our state. So for me, that is fantastic to be on a board with other librarians and other school districts and to see just what they do and what we do and compare and contrast. And we're having our conference coming up, and that's just so invigorating to me because I think it's so great to be able to go and to have that conversation. We're going to present. Mr. Lewandowski's going to present. He's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. I mean, just to have that, like, just to really give you that push that you might need to just finish out the year strong.
Well, and I think right now in our country, one of the biggest challenges to libraries is challenges. And just this idea that there's people that should be able to say what can and can't be in a library. So that's something that we constantly, every day, are a little bit nervous about. But we all are a very confident group and really hold strong in our mission to provide the best that we can to students for all the needs that they have. And we all really believe in the American Library Association's philosophies and stand behind those as well. Another big challenge, as we speak a lot about colleagues and people that we can work with, is libraries and librarians are constantly at risk of cuts. Constantly. I mean, in our city just a couple years ago, the public library, how many times was it challenged with the North and South branch being closed and all the librarians that were put on furlough? It's a big deal. And we are stronger together. So districts that support, like the school district of La Crosse, that support a robust library program, it's amazing. It's a great opportunity to actually be able to work with colleagues because not every district does that. A lot of people are silos, and they are the only one of their kind. I know that makes us sound like an endangered species, but sometimes it kind of feels like it. It can kind of feel like it. Because within our buildings, we're the only one of us, but I can always reach out and call Cindy or any of my other 14 to talk about what's going on in the school district of La Crosse and how we can do better for all the kids and not just me alone in my space doing my thing. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges to libraries now is just the cuts and concerns to the programs because of how much we really can do together.
Well, and I also know how much has been put on your plates, ever since COVID. But even, I mean, the librarian's role has expanded over the years. So, again, kudos to the work that you do. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say, but that is the role of a librarian. I mean, it's my 18th year in the district, and it is so different than, and some have been it longer than me in the district, doing librarianship. It is the really awesome thing about librarians is that we are always learning, and we are always evolving, and it's very invigorating. I think that's why I love the job so much, is because it's something you're always moving forward. It's not stagnant. And then you get to work with students, young people who keep you young, and great staffs. So, there's a lot on our plate, but it's just, there's always been a lot. It's just different, right? So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, everybody. Unless there's other comments, we really appreciate you coming forward tonight, and it's great to have you in your presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. I think the next item on our agenda is the approval of the superintendent's consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. So the consent agenda is a mechanism that is used by the board to deal with routine business that must come before the body. And are there any items that the members want to remove from the consent agenda, seeing there's only one?
I just have a question of differences between the bold and then
So the items that are bolded, my understanding is they are additions from the first time that the HR agenda was posted. So it's just to let people know that there were items that were added.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So, hearing nothing else, with a motion by Mr. Korberg and a second by Dr. Cooper Stoll, the items on the superintendent's consent agenda are approved as presented unless there is a motion to object. Is there a motion to object? Hearing none, then we will move on to the approval of the board consent agenda.
And I'll make a motion to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented.
And is there a second? Second. Okay. Moved by Mr. Korberg, second by Ms. Baumann to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented. First, are there any items the board want to remove from the board consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has carried, and we'll move on to the matters reserved for board action. And first is the 2021-2022 financial audit report. Dr. Engel, I'll turn it over to you.
First, thank you to our wonderful school librarians for coming in. If you don't want to stick around for the audit, you don't have to. However, it is good stuff, so give you an opportunity to take off if you're so inclined. I will turn it over to Ms. Sprang, because she can do a better job of explaining.
All right, so by state statute, school districts are required for an annual financial audit. Our accounting firm is Clifton Larson Allen, and tonight we have Mr. John Troutman here to go over the results of our fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to interject, I'm sorry, that you do have the financials in front of you, so if Mr. Troutman refers to a page, it's also attached to your agenda, but sometimes it's a little easier to look at it in your book. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good evening. My name is John Troutman, principal for CLA, Clifton Larson Allen, for any new faces. Again, tonight I just simply go through about 5-10 minutes of high-level discussion, go through a few things of the results of the audit, a couple of financial related, kind of where you ended the year and how you started the year we're in right now, and then open up for questions or anything else you want me to go through with audit concern or audit related. Certainly any pages in that document I'd be happy to go through. I have picked a handful of pages just to kind of go through, just kind of a sample for how the year ended June 30th, 2022 ended. So with that, the document itself, the big bound document that you have, either electronically or in paper, starts with the independent auditor's report, and that's really the important external audit results. So that's your opinion. That's our opinion that we attach to your financial statements. You'll notice on that letter on page 1 on that report, it is a little bit different. The order is a little bit different. The standards changed a little bit this year and really made an emphasis on the result, which is the opinion. They put that right front and center, which kind of makes sense because before you had to turn a couple pages to find it. So with that, the district received for June 30th, 2022, a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion. That's exactly what your internal controls that are in place really every single day of the year that flow information through all the departments and through all the various aspects of your district into the business office, into your financial software, and ultimately into financial statements that we audit, is working correctly. And again, that's exactly what you spend all that time and energy to try to do, is to get that clean, unmodified opinion. So that's excellent news. So that's where we'll start there. If you glance down on that page, you'll see an emphasis of matter, and that's a little bit different this year. And that is exactly what it sounds like. We're trying to make an emphasis of something, and that is really the new accounting standard for leases. And if you were here last year and you heard me talk last year and probably the last 3 years, because of COVID, this thing got kind of kicked down the road. But now we're finally to the year 2022 where this got implemented. So these financial statements that you're looking at include that change. So again, I won't get into the technicalities of that, but basically what you're doing is now you're recording all of your leases basically in accordance with that standard. So before you recorded capital leases, this just brought in a little bit more. The effect or the change was not significant to the district because you had already had your purchase finance leases on the books for previous GASBs. But again, in the future, if you enter in any leases, both revenue or expenditure driven, they will be included on your financial statements. So again, that's contained in these financial statements. The rest of that opinion letter goes through our responsibilities as your auditor, management's responsibilities as the district. And then it ends basically by kind of explaining the various sections of the financial statements. The next section, which is quite a few pages, is known as the management discussion and analysis. And that really goes from page 5 to 11, and that's really the district's response or the district's addition into your financial statements, where you're kind of taking all the results of the year in plain English and kind of going through what all changed. So highly recommend you look at that and also share with your constituents that section, because it does have a lot of information, sums up the whole year in that few pages. If you turn past the first couple financial statements, just for purposes of time, I'm going to skip those two and go to page 14. That is your balance sheet, your governmental funds balance sheet. And what those two funds on the leftmost column and then the other governmental funds represent, really your basic financial statements balance sheet. So this is a snapshot as of June 30th, 2022 of all of your assets, liabilities, and fund balances as of that day that you carried over into the 2022-23 fiscal year we're in right now. So with that, we look at the leftmost column, which is a general fund. General fund is your main operating fund of the district. It really houses all of the what you would expect to have general in nature. Your referendum debt service is the other major fund, that you have. And then the other governmental funds is a subtotal. That's an aggregate from the back, which contains all of your non-major funds. So with that all together, you have the total district. So I'm going to focus a little bit on the fund balances. So if you glance down to the bottom of the leftmost column, you'll see $32,074,000 in fund balance for the general fund. That's where you ended the year, 2022. You can see basically 5 components of that, or categories of that fund balance. Non-spendable, and again, this is a hierarchy, so most restrictive to least restrictive. So most restrictive would be a small dollar amount, $9,600, related to non-spendable, meaning inventories, prepaid items. You don't have that available to you. Then you have restricted and committed and assigned, and all 3 of those are monies you have available to you for the year end, June 30th. But restricted, so $1,398,000 is outside the district, has restrictions on some of that money. So again, it has to be spent for a certain purpose. Then draw kind of an imaginary line under that. Everything under that you have control over. Committed and assigned are really 2 categories that, while you have control of it as a district, you have earmarked those funds for various things that you intend to spend in the future. So again, those are various things that you have in the district. All of these details, if you want to know what these are in the footnotes to the financial statements, so you can easily find those. Assigned, again, is just a little bit less of a hierarchy as far as a restriction or an internal restriction. Then you're left with unassigned, and I always want to focus and kind of land on that number. That's the unassigned number. That's everything else kind of subtracted out, $23,791,000. Oftentimes, when you're looking at school district finance and any public sector finance for that matter, you like to compare that number with your expenditures to get an idea of a percentage. And why do we do that? Well, numbers are relative, right? So for your district, $23 million may mean, exactly perfect fund balance, but for another district that may be too low, another district that may be way too high. So we do that as far as a percentage, and that comes out to 23% of your expenditures. Again, 23%, 20 to 25% is really the range that school districts really want to target. And there's a reason why that number, that's not just an arbitrary number. Cash flow is a constant concern for school districts throughout the country, but especially Wisconsin. And basically your grants, property taxes, et cetera, are all cyclical in nature, and they all come in and revenues come in at various times. It creates a cash flow nightmare from a business standpoint because you're spending money on day one. You're spending money on day one of the district, and it takes a while for some of those revenues to come in. During certain times of the year, you're going to fall back on that $23 million, and that's why the 20 to 25% gets you in a position that's in good shape, good healthy fund balance. So again, great financial news there as far as being right in that category of fund balance. Any questions on that before I switch to the income statement? Page 16, and I won't spend a lot of time on that. There's a lot. This is basically the income statement for the year. So we talked about where you kind of ended the year, but this is how you got there. So you can see that $32 million in the leftmost column of the general fund. At the bottom there, you can see where it started the year in the beginning of the year. Well, here's all your revenues and expenditures. So I won't read through all those for you. Those are all the functions of the school district that you would expect as far as revenues, and then instruction, support service, debt service, community service, and non-program expenditures, which make up really the operation of the school district. And then you're left with basically excess of revenues over expenditures of $4,076,000. Below that, you see your other financing sources. That's where you see that lease number come in. So that's the effect of the lease transactions this year of $581,000 as far as new leases coming in as a revenue. And then you have change in fund balance of $4,657,000. So that's how you can see where your fund balance went from $27 million to $32 million at the end of the year. These reconciliations that you see in before that page and then after really tie these statements, these fund statements that we just went through, the balance sheet, the income statement, to those front two statements that we skipped. And those front two statements that we skipped are really all district financial information coming in as an income statement and a balance sheet, basically. And that includes all of your aspects, debt, assets, the building, et cetera. So that just reconciles the two so you can see what we just talked about, which is how you budget ties to those front two statements. With that, the financial statements conclude on page 19, and page 20 starts the footnotes, and that's really where, most of the emphasis or detail of all those numbers on all those basic statements that we just went through are really summarized and provided detail. So cash, debt, fixed assets, the fund balance we talked about are all detailed in there as far as information and a lot more detail for how everything ties out to your financial record. So again, a lot of information. I certainly won't go through all of that because it is many pages. But unless there's questions, I will go to the back, which is another opinion letter that is attached to the back related to internal control. Any questions on the footnotes? Anything you want me to go through in there or emphasize? Okay. Page 84, way in the back, is really your independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on audits. Financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. Government auditing standards, otherwise known as the Yellow Book, are a second set of standards that we have to follow for school district auditing. And really what this gets into is the internal control. So I mentioned, you have an unmodified opinion, your internal control is working. Well, this is kind of our report on that, and any recommendations and anything that best practices and things that you need to do a little bit better are contained in this section here. And again, and when you look at the audit itself, you know, your internal controls are operating effectively, getting you to an unmodified opinion. However, there is always opportunities for improvement. So with that, we show some findings. We call them findings. The standards require us to call them findings. But they are detailed in the back of the schedule. Page 86, hand in hand with that document goes in to an independent auditor's report on compliance for each major program, so and state program. So what this is getting at is a single audit. So we do three standards we have to follow. The general standards for the financial statement, the gas or the yellow book standards, which is internal control, and this is the uniform guidance, which is the single audit. So all of your state and federal grants we have to audit as well. With that, there's also recommendations. So if you turn to page 94, I'm sorry, 95, all of that really resulted in that last line, auditee qualifies as low-risk auditee. So even though we had a handful of findings and a handful of recommendations, you still qualified for a low-risk auditee. What that means is your internal controls are effective to qualify for that. You have to qualify for that. Once you elevate into material weaknesses and material issues, then you do not qualify for that. So that's excellent news. When that happens, we do not have to test as much as far as a single audit. If you do drop into a high risk, then we have to test more programs. So again, excellent. That's what you want when you set your internal controls over your grants, because you have internal controls that flow through the entire district. You have internal controls that also are specific to grants, and they do work hand in hand, but they are equally important, especially with the federal money that you get and you know, all the various ESSER money and things like that. There's a lot of different aspects of internal control that you have to basically handle all at the same time. And you do a really good job at that. So that's good news. Page 96 goes through our recommendations, so I'll just very quickly go through these just to kind of explain them to you. Again, section 2 on 96 is related to the financial statements. So that is a preparation of annual financial report. That is a kind of a fixed finding that's always there because we, as your auditor, prepare your financial statements. Again, not uncommon, nothing negative about that, but because of that, there is a finding, there is a deficiency there. However, it is a lower level deficiency. So again, in order to correct that, you'd have to prepare your financial statements, which I can tell you in Wisconsin school districts, it just doesn't exist very much. It's very, very rare to have that happen. There is some, but even some of the top 5 districts in the state don't do that. So nothing unusual there. 97, section 3 gets into that federal and state awards findings. And again, these are small things that don't elevate up to a material weakness, but always can be kind of a list of things to do better. And there's always some positive things to do better. Suspension and debarment is really a unique thing related to a federal single audit, where every vendor over a certain dollar amount has to be approved or analyzed whether they're suspended or debarred. And it's literally like a 2-minute thing, but I can tell you that this is a finding that's very, very common in school districts, because you have to document that you're doing that, and a lot of times you bring it up on the screen and it says nothing. It says no record found. That's your documentation. So there's a little bit of some best practice there as far as keeping a record of all that. I think you're already doing that. You're already changing that, and a lot of districts are doing that as well. 98, segregation of duties grant reporting. Again, it's specific grant related, so I won't get into the details too much. But again, anytime you're talking about a grant, it's very important. Any kind of reporting situation, any kind of claim, that you have 2 people signing off on that. And again, in your case, it wasn't that it wasn't being done. It wasn't being documented, and that's a real common kind of low-level issue that really it's important in the uniform grant world, the federal grant world especially, that you are signing off and there's some formal record, whether it's electronic or signature, doesn't matter, but there's a formal record that it was done. So again, always things to work on, but a fairly isolated case, so did not elevate. And then 99, Pupil transportation kind of concluded there. And again, there was just an issue, a very minor issue with a reported number of students. I think the question cost was $1,400. So again, extremely minor, but again, have to point that out to you. And again, there's some changes that were already being made as far as a result of that audit finding. So again, overall, some minor things, but overall, really good, a good compliance audit and a really good financial audit. So, any questions, anything you want me to go over or cover with audit related, I certainly can.
Any questions from the board members?
Thank you.
Not hearing any. So thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
the presentation.
Have a good night.
Yep. All
I'll
right.
make a motion to accept the 2021-22 financial audit report as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. So moved by Mr. Korberg and seconded by Ms. Leahy to accept the 2021-2022 financial audit report as presented. Any comments, questions at all from the board? All right, hearing none. Then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried, and we will move on to 6.02, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards 2023 proposed resolutions. And I think I need somebody other than Mr. Korberg to make the recommendation.
It's a motion to open.
I make a motion to give the WASB delegate, Mr. Brian Korberg, or their designated authority to use their discretion when voting on behalf of the school district of Crosse at the WASB Delegate Assembly.
Second.
All right. So moved by Dr. Cooper Stoll and seconded by Mr. Spivey to give the WASB delegate, Mr. Korberg, or their designee the authority to use their discretion when voting on behalf of the school district of La Crosse at the WASB Delegate Assembly. So you had the proposed resolutions attached. Any comments, questions from the board members as they reviewed them?
They don't, none of them appear to be as controversial as in the past. But,
Right.
I'm sure we'll find there'll be some discussion about that, a number of them as we go through them. But if you notice anything, let me know, or have any questions.
Any other comments? Yes, I think last year was probably the most controversial year that we had with the National Association and all of that.
Yeah.
That happened, so it was good to see that this will be a little calmer, I hope.
And people trying to do online and virtual and in person at the same time
Yeah.
kept breaking down.
Oh, good. All right, well, then if there are no other questions or comments, then all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion has carried, and then we will move on to our information portion, which is the Operational Expectation Monitoring Report, OE6, Financial Administration. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Engel.
So this is a part of our monitoring process for our operational expectations. And with the presentation of the audit, this may feel like a bit of some repetition as we go through it. But Patty will take us through OE6. So Ms. Sprang, after you.
Okay, so this is all about the audit and compliance. And before I start, I really wanted to start by thanking DeVita Joe Moling, the finance supervisor for the district, and our business office staff that allows us to have the good bookkeeping that we have that allows us to be in compliance and in good financial standing. So I thank them very much for this. So starting with OE 6.1, a lot of this is connected to the financials, so you'll see that those attachments. 6.1 is the annual audit for 21-22 conducted by Clifton Larson Allen. Did not disclose any reports of improper employee payments. So we have evidence of the representation letter that we will use in a lot of areas because it just shows that on page 2, number 6, that we are in compliance with the, let's see, I'll read it on page number 6. So, related party relationships and transactions, including but not limited to revenue, expenditures, expenses, loans, transfers, leasing arrangements, and guarantees and amounts receivable from or payable to related parties have been appropriately accounted for and disclosed in accordance with the requirements of GAAP. So that is very important as we go forward. Then, of course, the auditor's governance communication also indicates that we are in compliance and did not disclose any improper kinds of payments to employees or others. Indicator number 2 is internal reviews of payroll liability payments and related invoices confirm that 100% of the payroll-related liabilities are paid accurately and by the appropriate due date. So we have to provide what I attached to the auditors at the end of the year for them to see that our liability accounts are in compliance. Let's see what else we have. Indicator 3, 6.1.3, the annual audit for 21-22 did not identify any improper invoice payments. So the auditor report on internal control and compliance, page 84, 85 is our evidence for that. That their test showed that we were in compliance. Indicator 4, 6.1.4, an internal review confirmed that the long-term debt payments were made in accordance with the debt payment schedule amounts and the due dates for the 21-22 fiscal year. So that is the audited financials, page 36 to 38, and the 2021 annual DPI report showing that our worksheet and our debt is being paid on time. And then indicator 5 is the annual report did not disclose any insufficiencies in the processing and payment of payroll and other debts. So that is the auditor report also on compliance, page 84, 85. So 6.2, indicator 1. So 95% of purchases of items with an individual cost above $5,000 that do not have to be competitively bid are price shopped and value compared, as measured by a random sample review of the high dollar purchases conducted by the business department. So the statement there for 6.2 is purchasing statement. So that shows the approved purchase orders, our process. Davida, as the finance supervisor, actually goes through every one of these purchase orders and approves them, makes sure that they are all as they should be. So 6.3.1, the annual audit conducted by Clifton Larson did not disclose any non-compliance related to conflict of interest. So we have on there our administrative policy related to conflict of interest and our statement that shows that the audit did not disclose any non-compliance. We did not disclose any non-compliance with conflict of interest. Let's see. 6.4.1. We have a random sample of 50 items found, 3 eligible to be competitively bid, all 3 that were determined to warrant competitive bidding by the business office were bid. The remaining 47 were routine expenditures that would not be conducive to bidding, such as utilities or payroll-related expenditures. And so we have those methods of procurement and bidding according to our administrative policy. And then we have the, let's see, the statement there is the projects that were over $100,000 that Mr. Levina has brought to your attention over the year. And that included the HVAC project at Central High School, the high school renovation, and the planetarium remodel. Okay, so then as far as 6.5, the audited financial statements and annual audit is completed by the Board of Education, selected independent financial term. So that is our statements, and you just met Mr. Troutman, who was leading that audit for us. And then the annual audit did not report any difficulties or lack of cooperation from the district staff during the auditing process. So that's the governance communication letter, page 2, showing that they did not run into any issues or difficulties with any of our staff. So OE 6.6, the annual audit report from DPI's aid register was tied out to the district's revenue accounts. So that just shows that our general ledger matches what DPI had on records for our aid, our financial aid. Then indicator 2, the all funds due from the state and federal government are tracked and collected. So this is the independent auditor's report on compliance for each of the major federal and state programs that Mr. Troutman had brought to your attention, and also the breakdown of all of our federal and state awards that DeVita prepares. So let's see, 6.7. The auditing firm confirmed that district accounting policies conform to generally accepted accounting principles. So that is in the independent auditor's report, the opinion on page 1 that Mr. Troutman had pointed out to you, that is a clean opinion, and that's in the second paragraph of that document. On indicator 6.7.2, we have the district's DPI annual report was submitted successfully on October 7th, and that report is attached. However, our DPI certification acceptance is actually attached as last year's because we had a new person doing that report this year, and although it was completed, did not realize that it had to be signed by myself, Dr. Engel, and Brenda as our clerk. So I think Brenda was able to sign it tonight, and we will attach it to this OE, and we will be in compliance. So the next measure is that the 1506 AC was submitted and accepted by DPI, and that's the auditor's report. So that's showing, that attachment is showing DPI's records that our auditors complied and submitted it in a timely basis. Let's see, and then 6.8, we have within 6 months of the close of the year that the complete set of financial statements are submitted to DPI, and that shows the DPI confirmation that they did submit them on a timely basis, and we are in compliance there. Then the next one is the statements are published in print for the board, and copies made available to the public and are posted on for download on the district site. So that again is the attached whole book that you saw, and that they will be attached then tomorrow after board review to our website for the public to be available. For 6.91, expenditures for the general fund for 21-22 did not exceed the appropriation amount approved in the final budget amendment. So they are as originally adopted or as amended by the board. And so we have the board from our board docs showing that on June 20th, the board approved the budget amendment for 21-22, and the fund balance designations the board approved on August 15th. So those are the evidence there. And also for 6.9, there was no violation of state law or notification of a violation. So that is in the representation letter, page 5, number 25, that expenses have been appropriately classified. For 6.10, we have the debt schedule again that the audit did not, the annual audit report finds no evidence or short or long-term financial obligations or debts except those that have been approved by the board. So that is the debt schedule from the audit report and the DPI annual report for debt. And then we have indicator 2, the annual audit did not report any findings of obligations remaining unpaid for 60 days after the close of the fiscal year. So that is the audited financials, note 3 for material obligations, and the representation letter that no events have occurred subsequent to this audit, and the district did not have any material violation of legal or contractual provisions for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. For OE 6.11, we have the annual audit did not report any findings of state law violations in connection with expenditures exceeding appropriations. And so that is governance communication letter, the qualitative aspects on paragraph 3, that starts with we noted no transactions. Then indicator 2, there were no violation of state law or notification of a violation in connection with expenditures exceeding appropriations as determined by external auditors. Representation, page 4, number 15, there are no violations. That's 6.12, indicator 1, the district transfers between funds have Board of Education authorization as approved by the adopted or amended annual budgets. So we have, of course, the audited financials attached again, but we also have the Fund 27 transfer page just from the audited financials showing that we transferred $10 million from the general fund on an annual basis to cover the special ed expenditures. We also have our contribution to Fund 73 as shown by our audited financial statements, and that is our contribution to other post-employment benefit plan and the supplemental pension plan into Fund 73. Then we have indicator 2, the annual audit did not report any findings of state law violations in connection with fund transfers. That is representation letter, page 2, number 6, as we have had as evidence for some of the other areas. So 6.13, state and federal required financial reports have been completed by their assigned due dates. So we have, again, the DPI status and due date reports. I do want to mention that the DPI has one of those dates in red. However, they have put that in the wrong transfer of service. There's a Part A, B, and C. Part C is actually what they received on September 27th, which is was due on September 30th. So they too have a lot of new people at DPI. So they just put it in the wrong place, and it's another one of those confusing things that we have to comply to. So federal and state program compliance, page 86, opinion is also attached as evidence. And then our indicator 2, the financial audit report has been submitted to DPI. So again, we have those deadlines met from our DPI status and due date report, and that the audit report, of course, is presented today at this meeting. So. And then, let's see, the district did not receive any notification of noncompliance due to late or inaccurate filings, and so that is our statement that shows we did not receive any notices. And then 6.14, this talks about the district has implemented internal controls covering all aspects of the financial operations. So when Mr. Troutman was talking about the findings that are, they say, significant deficiencies. It sounds really bad, but actually that's good compared to a material weakness. So these are, a material weakness is going to impact your financials in a bad way. So these here are just more of a statement on procedures and processes that we need to do better, and we take their advice and we implement that right away, because we want to be in control, have good internal control. And all of those things happened, which were surprising, because as far as like the school nutrition cluster, we've signed off on every other federal grant. It was just this one this year that they noticed that we don't have somebody actually signing it, although they approve it. So we will make sure that that is approved. And the pupil transportation was another one of those. It was summer school transportation. Child was noted, the students were noted as being traveling further than showed in their record on Skyward. So these are the things that the auditors dig into. They try to match up those things, but we also had a change in our transportation supervisor, and they work collaboratively with Right Way. So that's another thing that we know we need to be better at double checking those numbers. And then indicator 2 is all investments have been confirmed by the district's independent auditor. So there attached are the pages from this financial document that show our investments and where they are for the district. And that is it. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So I just wanted to confirm, Ms. Brink, that all of those deficiencies that were found have already been addressed then?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other questions from the board members or comments?
I'd just like to say thank you and Davina and the business office for doing this not so easy task and making sure that we are working to compliance or in compliance with what we need to be as far as state regulations. So thank you.
Well, thank you. But I think too that this kind of just, you can recognize things that you as the board approved during the year, and this is just the cycle, and those are the things that we have to prove to the auditors that the board is on top of things. So thank you to all of you too. And you do not have to keep this book unless you need something to put you to sleep at night, but we will keep it here. And then, of course, like I said, it's always on our website that you can refer to it. Okay?
So I have a few comments, and actually, you just brought up one of my thoughts was in OE 6.8, indicator 1, I believe it was, no, indicator 2, pardon me, where it says the statements and a report are published in print for the board, and I'm just wondering if that's really necessary. I just don't want to be wasting paper if it's not necessary and wasting the the amount of money it takes to print these things. So, just something I think as a board to consider whether it's necessary to print them and then they're sitting there. So, in OE 610, indicator 1, in your evidence, you'd stated that the 2021-2022 debt schedule doesn't contain long-term debt that has not been approved by the board, but I know the indicator also talks about short-term financial obligations. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yep, we don't have any short-term debt because, as the auditor said, we have a fund balance that enables us to pay our bills when we don't have any revenue coming in. However, as he also mentioned, new this year are capital leases. They are considered debt. So we do have a capital lease for our technology, which is substantial, and then we have some other leases that we lease the parking lot over by Polytechnic, things like that. So they put a value to them, and now they're in our financial statements.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we didn't have any short-term debt, and so just making sure that we talked about it, since it talked about both there. In 6.13, indicator 1, I think another piece of evidence that could potentially be used is our board minutes because as you mentioned, a number of these items are discussed in front of the board, and we do approve any transfers between funds, and so that may be another way to think about providing that evidence, because that way, I think, especially as we have new board members coming on board, it'd be good to have that tie for them to see. But again, I mean, not telling you to do that, but just a consideration I think would be beneficial for the board as well to see that. In 6.14, indicator 1, I think that many people think of the audit as an opportunity to catch things that are going on that are wrong. But I think another piece is that the audit is to help us grow and to notice when there are areas where we can do better. And so I appreciate that you are already taking those to heart and moving forward with them. So just to mention that, because I think a lot of people are scared of an audit, that all of a sudden something horrible is going to happen. And really a purpose of an audit is to just check on how things are going and how can we help you improve. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments, then I guess at this point I would just ask the board members how we feel about OE6. Do we feel that we are fine with how it's been reported as being in compliance? Do we have any concerns that with leaving it as in compliance?
I just have a quick question. Is the selection of the auditing firm subject to a bidding process?
Yes.
Okay.
When did we last re-up with?
It was, now it would be, I think, 6 years ago. We usually do it on a 5-year basis, but the board also approved to extend their contract for 2 years. So they will do it, they did it just for this year and for next year, and then DeVito will put out an RFP for audit services again.
Right. Any other thoughts or comments here? Okay. It sounds like we feel comfortable with being in compliance. So then I'll move to OE4, the changes to Personnel Administration Monitoring Report. Dr. Engel.
Thank you. So we presented last time we met, and now we have recommended changes, and I'll invite Mr. Wenthe up to discuss the minor change we're suggesting.
Just 2 quick items to follow up with. We edited 4.5 to state that the survey was attached rather than the results. With that said, some of these results were confidential, but I believe Dr. Engel was able to share most of the data with the board as requested. The second one was 4.6, a change to the indicator. For clarity's sake, we added in a list of the employee groups who are responsible for completing Safe Schools compliance training. Previously, it simply stated regular employees, which is really subjective. And that is all.
Excellent. Any comments from the board? Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I think that's great.
I have a question.
Yes.
So for 4.5, next year we'll expect to see the survey results in the evidence? Yes, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Let me pull up 4.5 just for a second here, just so I can see the language exactly as it's written. It does say an annual building will include the content indicated in the interpretation above. So, yes, I believe the copy of the survey is included, but yeah, since the board asked for a little bit more information, I think if we could continue the practice that we did this year, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and it doesn't require any language changes or anything like that to that one? Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, thanks.
Alrighty. With that, then we'll move on to announcements, and I'll turn over to Ms. Spellman for the Crosse Public Education Foundation update.
Yeah, I have just a few. Just a reminder that the grants luncheon is on the 23rd. Board of Education members can attend, and Ms. Steigerwald had a sign-up sheet, and she hasn't talked to you, and you'd like to come, let her know. I also wanted to mention that the second round of Gold Star grants are coming up. Applications are going to be due in late February, and then announced in early April. And that's all I have for today.
For my announcements, just a reminder to the board that we do have a coherence governance workshop on January 26th, which is not a Monday. So just making sure that you are putting that on your calendars so that you can be present. And also just to hope that everybody will take the Dr. Martin Luther King holiday and consider what can be done to help move that holiday forward in a positive way with trying to support your community in any way you possibly can. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Engel.
This week, January 9th through the 13th, is Adult School Crossing Guard Recognition Week, and we have a number of school crossing guards which provide a really valuable service for our families and our students, helping them cross some busy trafficked areas every single day. They greet kids, they create a point of contact, it's another positive adult in their life, and we're really thankful for what they do to help us out. It's really limited work at a very narrow period of time, and so challenging to find folks that are willing to take that on, and we're just very appreciative that we have folks that are helping our kids get to school safely every single day. So.
Wonderful. With that then, we will move on to agenda planning.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 23rd, 2023 Board of Education agenda with any additions or corrections.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Korberg, seconded by Mr. Spivey, to approve the January 23rd, 2023 Board of Education agenda with any additions or corrections. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is carried, and we will move on to board debriefing. Dr. Cooper-Stoll, yes.
Before we transitioned on the board from to coherent governance from policy governance, we had a standing finance committee, which went away when we transitioned, understandably. One of the benefits of that, however, and Brad served on that for a number of years, and I did as a new board member, it was very helpful. We got the audit presented to us first, and so we had some one-on-one time with the auditor to ask questions. It took me a good couple years on the board to really grasp the complexity of educational funding. So for newer board members, I know we just got this tonight, but I just wanted to highly encourage you, if you have questions, to reach out. And I'm sure Ms. Spring would be happy to address those, because that certainly was of benefit.
And maybe something to consider would be, not necessarily on a committee, but like an opportunity for board members to reach out to Ms. Spring ahead of time, and maybe having a dedicated time where we could have just a one-on-one sit-down or an opportunity to ask some questions. I would encourage the board members to bring them here too, right? Because the whole purpose of our board meeting, especially being something that is live streamed, is that our community is seeing the questions we are asking, that we are doing our due diligence, that we are digging deep into these topics. So I do appreciate that.
This is a lot to digest in one setting. So as newer board members take it home and look through it, I just encourage you to ask any questions that may come up.
Absolutely. Other comments for the debriefing? Hearing none, then we will adjourn to our workshop. So thank you very much. 26 at 6.